ladies and gentlefolk, and darling knitters of the world and fibre artists of the world. Welcome back to episode 7 of my Knitting Diaries podcast. I'm David van der Kamp, a Serbian knitwear designer and a textile artist. And if you are new here, welcome, and I do hope that you shall like my podcast and the content that I produce. And if you are a consistent follower of mine, both here on my newly started podcast channel, but also on my social media, I welcome thee back. I hope that you've all had a wonderful time. It's been 2 weeks, I suppose, since my last episode 6. And I think that's an appropriate time for me to produce these films, since it does get very tiring and a lot of work goes into them. Right. I also hope that you enjoyed the little insertion at the beginning of this episode of me playing the first half of the first movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. That piece is probably one of my favorite pieces of music, and I've loved it for so many years. And I thought, well, I've not filmed myself play so far for the channel, so I thought it would complement the little snippets of the footage that I took a while ago while I was out and about in the ye old mountains here in the southeast of the country of Serbia, of course, if you don't know. So I decided to put together and just make a little insert here in the film, so I hope that you enjoyed it. I might eventually film the second half of the movement, and the reason I didn't is because it is rather long, and I don't want to waste 10 minutes of the film for the sake of the intro. So, right. Where do I begin? I have quite a few things to share. So I did take a little break from social media as soon as I posted the episode 6 of this channel. And the reason is, which is something that I have mentioned quite a few times, both here and on my social media, is that sometimes it does get rather overwhelming for me. The whole concept of social media and keeping up and following the algorithms and, getting in touch with everybody, and there's sometimes things that I would rather not see and things that tend to upset me. So I have found that for the sake of one's sanity, one absolutely must take a little break from the social media once in a while. And that's what I've done. So I just took a few days off, and I also decided that I'm not going to knit during those few days, since I've been also a bit overwhelmed in the knitting area as well. So whilst I was doing that, I thought, well, I'm going to do something that I've not done in a very long time, and that is draw. And I couldn't even find all of my drawing pencils. It's been so many years since I drew anything, and I thought to myself, well, I've got nothing else to do now, so I'm just going to do that. And I picked a beautiful picture of young late Queen Elizabeth II, which I drew, and I'm going to insert the picture of my drawing here so that you can take a look. And I have to admit, it did bring me more joy than I had originally anticipated. So it was indeed such fun, and it put me in a right state of mind to continue on with things and do things. And of course, go back to my knitting. So, talking of knitting, I'm going to update you on the non-existent progress of my Princess Catherine shawl. So, let me tell you what I've done. So, since episode 6, I have completed the first edging there. So, it has three of the Chinese borders. Yeah. These are very, very pretty indeed. And I've also picked up all the stitches above, and I've done my pearl insertion there. Anywho, and now I did a swatch a bunch of times for the body of the shawl, and I tried to get the pattern to work, and I just didn't like it, and it kept bugging me, and it was getting on my very last nerve. So I put it aside and I focused on other things for just a wee while. And then, after that little break, it came to me. I now know what I'm going to do with the body of the shawl, and I made sure that my calculations are all matched up and it works nicely. So I'm very excited that I can now return to my Princess Catherine shawl and hopefully finish it as soon as possible. So yay, that's very exciting. Also, I have released my log cabin jumper, which you can see peeking through there. And I've released it what day is it? Well, on Saturday. I've released it on Saturday, and it's available both in my Ravelry store and on my website. Now let me tell you a little bit about that jumper. Alright, so here it is. This is the log cabin jumper. And I have completed it a while ago, and then I was writing up the pattern for it. And guess what? Just like every time, I have made the most ridiculous of mistakes. And I only realized that when I was writing up the pattern, and my calculations were way off. So I was thinking, what did I do wrong? And I just couldn't figure it out. So let me tell you. First, I want to tell you about how it is constructed. So this is a raglan top portion, and it is knitted from the collar down, so top down, to the mid chest area, and then you separate the sleeves and you join the body and leave the sleeves on hold to be worked later. And then you put the whole raglan thing aside to take a little break. And then you fetch all of your wee bits of yarn from your stash, and you cast on and you work the squares. So there's two, the front square and the one on the back. And I've done different color combinations on both the front and back there. So once you complete the front and the back square, you then seam them. I'm going to give myself a little hug there. So you seam them on the sides, the squares, right? And then you go along and you pick up the stitches around the whole thing using the raglan color, and you knit a few rows there. And then what you do, and this is the only tricky thing about this pattern, and this is why I've put it I've addressed the pattern as advanced beginner, because I know not many people are fond of the technique. But in order to put these two pieces together, you ought to do a Kitchener stitch graft. And I know people are not very fond of it, and I cannot really know why, but I suppose I do. It is a little bit intimidating at first, but once you get into the rhythm of it, it's a rather simple thing to do. And if you haven't tried it yet, I highly suggest that you go knit 2 samples of knitting in plain stocking stitch, and then you graft them together. Believe me, it's going to open so many new possibilities for you as a knitter. If you are a beginner, if you are an advanced knitter, you probably have done it already and you know how it works, and you know how useful it can be with some project. So that's what I've done. I grafted the bottom and the top portion of the jumper, and then what you do is you pick up the stitches you left on the sleeves and you work the sleeve. And I've done them really puffy. So you knit the sleeve without any shaping, and upon reaching the cuff, you drastically decrease the number of stitches, and that gives you a very nice, lovely puff. That's not only here, but throughout the whole sleeve, so it gets that balance with a more fitted log cabin body of the jumper. So with that being said, let me tell you what I've done wrong. So as the squares were being knitted, and I completed those, and I've sewn everything together. And as I'm writing the pattern, and I'm charting the squares onto paper, and I realize that there's one stripe missing. And then I started laughing at myself for being so foolishly blind as to not realize that one was a square and other was a rectangle when I was piecing them together. I don't know how that has slipped my eyesight, and I was wearing glasses. So I had to do what I really didn't want to do. I had to unseam everything. So undo the graft, the Kitchener stitch, unseam all of the on both sides of this, and then pick up, knit another stripe, and then sew it all back together. And oh my, was that quite... and it's not a difficult thing to do, but it is very time consuming and does require a good amount of patience, which I suppose I had at the moment. So I've undone all of that, I fixed it, now it's perfect. But also, as I was designing this and as I was knitting it, I completely messed up the collar, the neck bend. And I finished the whole jumper, and the neck bend, the whole neck was very, very off. So upon finishing all of this and fixing all of this, I looked at it and I thought, well, you know, since I managed to undo the whole bloody thing, I might just as well chop off the collar, re-knit it, and make it look nice, like it is now. And this is, well, was a little bit intimidating to do, since this is a raglan jumper, and I used to chop up jumpers quite often. You know, when I don't like a bit, I just take the scissors to it, I snip everything that I don't like, I re-knit it and join it and everything, and it works splendidly. But with this, it's a raglan, meaning that there's increases on every other row. So I didn't know how am I supposed to chop off the whole neck area. So I did come up with a plan, and let me tell you, I took a video of it. So I'm just going to let you watch just a minute or two of me chopping off, to say, the neck of this jumper. So upon finishing that, I'll see you. Alright, so now I want to go on this endeavor of chopping off a neck on this jumper. So when I've knitted it, I did some calculations wrong, and this neck, the neck bend, it's sort of bulging and it doesn't sit nicely. So my plan is to somehow, with the help of some miracle energy, chop this neck off. Since this is raglan, I've never done it. So let's do it together and hopefully it works. I have a rough idea as to how I'm going to do it, but let's see if it works. Alright, so the plan is, I'm going to, I did my calculations and I have a rough idea as to where the neck should be and how much bigger I should make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a pair of scissors and just cut one stitch and then slowly unravel it. And please do hope, I do hope that you excuse the size of my shears, since I absolutely couldn't get my small scissors. I don't know where I've put them and I can't find them. And I've also got a pair of circular needles so that I can pick up stitches, and also a tiny sharp tapestry needle so that I can pull it through. So here goes nothing. Let's see if it works. Alright, so I've counted where all the increases are, and I'm going to try and cut along the line of plain knitting without the increases. So I've counted 2 increase rounds, and below that round I'm going to try and hopefully cut. So this is the increase stitch there, and I'm going to cut this stitch below it. Let's see if I can sort of pick it out like that. That's the one. That's the one that I want to cut. Here goes, and it's cut. Alright, so now I'm going to just try and undo that row carefully and see where it takes me. Alright, well, I got one stitch out. Let me continue. This is sticky wool, so it's very tricky to pull out, but I hope I can manage without dropping them further down. There it is. Okay, so how many did I get? That's 3. It's sort of the reason I decided to do it this way is because it's sort of like undoing a graft Kitchener stitch. You just undo the seam and it leaves you with plain stitches. So I'm hoping that this will work the same way and hopefully leave me with a successful alteration. I'm going to do a few more, and we are at the raglan line. I'll do a few more, and then I'm going to, once I pass the raglan line, I'm going to collect all of these live stitches onto the needle so that I can secure them and make sure that they don't go on any adventures on their own. That would not be very helpful. It's time to have them nice and secure. Calm I seem, but believe me, on the inside I'm having a total anxiety attack. The sooner I have it cut, the better. Although it's not really stressful because, you know, I know what I'm doing and I know it's right, but it's just in the back of your mind since, you know, you are actually cutting it, and you know, it's the idea of doing so that's quite traumatic. Alright, so it worked. It's nicely out. Here's what we chopped off. The neckline and a few rows of knitting there. So this should be just about right. And it should work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave this on the side and I'm going to cast on a different number of stitches at the neck, and I'm going to knit the neck, and I'm probably going to do one of those folded and sewn neck hems there. And once the whole neckband is finished, I'm going to graft it together to the body using the Kitchener stitch. So let me go and cast on, and then I'll come back and we can graft it, and hopefully this time round it's going to be absolutely splendid. Alright, change of plans. I just did my calculations once again onto the paper, and it turns out that I've cut on the exact same spot that I wanted to, meaning that the only thing left to knit is the ribbing of the neck. There's no raglan rows at all. So that means that I can actually go pick up the stitches and just knit the neck straight off from the jumper instead of casting on, knitting the ribbing and then grafting it together. So that's what I'm going to do. It's not exactly the same direction, but it's not going to be an obvious problem. So let me show you. Right, so this is the one that I've had, that I cut off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 16-inch circulars. I counted all the stitches, and then I'm going to pick up all of the stitches, join in the yarn, and do the cuff. that way, all the way up, and then I'm going to fold it and seam it on the inside, and that should be it. And it's much easier than knitting it and grafting it back together, and you get the same result. So this is absolute splendid news. So yeah, I'm going to go and do that now, and hopefully be back with the perfect proportion for the neck. You can see how messy this one is. Anywho, such fun. Alright, so here it is, and as you can tell, that's a very handsome looking neckband there. So I've done the folded ribbing there, and look, doesn't that look splendid? And it wasn't that difficult to do, and I'm very pleased that I've done it. So hip hip hooray, I suppose. Yeah, I'm very excited. Now the whole jumper looks rather splendid, and I can now go on to publish the pattern. Yay! Alright, well, I hope you saw how I did that. It was very, very nerve-wracking, and I had a slight panic attack halfway through, but it did work out wonderfully, and I now have a very nice neckline there, and it fits beautifully. So I'm very, very happy that it is perfect as it should be. And like I mentioned earlier, the pattern is now available both on my in my Ravelry store and on my website at vandekampdesigns.com. Now, I have made a 20% discount for all of you viewers. So if you have made it this far into the video, I'll put the link in the description box below, as well as the code for a discount, so that you can go over to Ravelry and get it 20% off if you'd like to knit this jumper. And this is only exclusively for the viewers of my channel. So I hope you will check it out. And if you end up ditching it, I hope that you shall post your progress so that I can see your color combinations. And this is really a wonderful way to use up all of the scrap bits of yarn that you have left. And I am not a huge fan of having leftover yarns and stashes and stuff. So I really do not like having that clutter. So I always look for new ways of disposing of those pieces and bits of wool. And this uses only such small amounts for the log cabin squares. The only thing that you need more of is the raglan bit. But I suppose everyone has enough to do the raglan. It doesn't need that much yarn anywho. So right, I'm very excited, and I took pictures at one of our cousins' log cabins in the mountains, and it was super windy when I was there, so almost ended up in Oz. But it was such fun, and I'm so very happy to have released it, and that I can share it with you all. Also, I would really like to thank all of you for the support that you have been giving me ever since I started doing everything that I now do. And it really means a lot to me. And the reason that I'm bringing this up once again is because upon releasing the pattern, I often go onto Facebook, and I am a member of multiple knitting groups on Facebook. So I've mentioned it before. The reason that I started Knit's Gonna Knit group with Irina, because we were just so frustrated at how, I'm trying to find a proper word without sounding rude about, you know, it's very odd the way that they treat designers and yarn dyers in most of the knitting groups, and it really annoys me, because we are supposed to be a community. We're supposed to encourage each other and yet I can't even post my pattern. And mind you, I didn't even post any links or anything. They just know that I'm a designer and they know that it's a pattern that I've done. So even if I just say my latest project, they're going to either remove my post, or in the worst scenario, they're going to kick me out of the group, which has actually happened over the weekend. I was kicked out of 3 groups just for posting a picture of my finished project. And not to mention posting links. I've not done that in a long time in any of the groups, except Knitting with Suzanne Bryan and Knitting Bartender. So they're wonderful. They have the ability, they have a rule that allows one to post a picture with a link to the pattern if you're a designer. So, and of course in our Knitters Gonna Knit group, you are also more than welcome. Actually, you are encouraged to post about your knitting related or fiber related business. So if you are a knitwear designer or a yarn dyer, please feel free to promote your work through our group that now has over 21,000 members. So it's quite wonderful. And yeah, so that always makes me rather sad that I put so much work into each and every pattern. I try my very best, and I don't know if you are aware of how much effort actually goes into writing and publishing a pattern. And I've mentioned this multiple times back when I was doing my Friday live broadcast in the Knitters Gonna Knit group. I've talked about it multiple times, is just the amount of work that goes into it. You know, you start off with the design idea. So I come up with the idea, I sometimes sketch it out, sometimes I don't. And then begins the swatching phase. And unlike when you're already reading a pattern, you are designing one, so you have to make multiple swatches to make sure that the idea works, and oftentimes it doesn't. So those swatches need to be altered and adjusted and modified in ways so that it actually works. So upon finishing the swatch, you then have to proceed with the actually knitting the jumper or the pattern, whatever it is that you are knitting or designing. And as we all know, knitting something takes a little bit of time. It doesn't matter how fast you are as a knitter, it does take some time to finish. So upon finishing that, I take notes along the way. Sometimes I forget and then I regret it later. But I try to take all of the notes, and then you're supposed to just write the pattern. And it's a very time-consuming effort, and I have to admit, it's not my favorite thing to do. I like to think that I've become somewhat good at it, but I still do not like the very process of writing a pattern. You have to do all the calculations, the sizing, the typing, the picture taking, everything. So it does take a long time, and patterns cost only a few dollars at most. So I'm trying to find proper words to express my feelings here, but it is underrated, definitely, the work that knitwear designers do. You know, as well as if you were to sell your knitwear, still you would not get the proper price for it, and that's fine. It's completely fine. But I feel, since I've already put so much work, why can't I at least promote it on social media and groups and share it with people? Because I know that if those people saw it, they might consider buying it. And by buying it, they're supporting me, and above all, supporting me in my emotional endeavors and encouraging me to continue doing the very thing that I do. So it is a bit devastating to be met with such rejection and with so little support from the leaders of those communities. So yeah, that's a bit strange. Anywho, so talking of patterns, I did want to say something, but now it escapes me. Oh well, it happens. I shall move along. Like I mentioned, use the code and get the 20% off of this pattern. I also have 2 other designs that have been completed and that I need to publish, and I will be publishing them soon, I hope. So after this is since this is published now, I'll give it a week or 2, and then I'll post a shawl that I've been secretly working on, and nobody has seen it yet. So I'm very, very excited to share that shawl with all of you. It's definitely something of an adventurous knit, but it is equally stunning, if I may say so myself. I'm probably most proud of that shawl. I sort of find that I always say that every time I finish a new thing. I say it is my proudest work. Oh well, I suppose that's how it is. And also I shall be scheduling some classes on and lectures. So I'm definitely going to do a class on the 3 shawl construction methods. That's number 1 class that I'm going to do, and it's going to be online through Zoom. So I will be posting notifications on that, and if you'd like to join, you can apply. And I'm going to put some small fee there so that it's affordable. And I'll teach the 3 standard shawl shapes and how to achieve them. So we'll do that. So that includes the triangular shawl, the standard triangular, the crescent shawl, and the asymmetrical, the one that starts from the tip, from the left edge and increases and then decreases to the right edge. So I'll do that one as well. And then another lecture that I'm going to do is going to focus on the history and the traditions of Serbian kilim weaving. So kilims have been brought to Serbia from the Ottoman Empire, since Serbia was occupied by the Ottomans for 5 centuries, and most of our Serbian words are actually Turkish words, and we also our food is practically Turkish as well. So I'm going to do a lecture and talk about the history, about the patterns, how they were worked and done, and what they represent, because we have a few different types of kilims here, and each of the motifs has its meaning and its use, and everything is very, very nice. And I hope that I can share the heritage of the kilim weavers here with all of you abroad. And perhaps we could eventually do a little class where I can show you how a kilim is actually made, the kilim rugs. And don't be mistaken with the kilim rugs and the one of those Persian rugs, because they're different. They're both for the floor, but one is a carpet and one is not really a carpet, even though it is. But one is knotted and is thick, and the other one is thinner and not knotted, but woven like a tapestry instead. And the 3rd class that I'm going to do is an absolute must, because the shawl that I previously mentioned uses the very intimidating technique of intarsia. And intarsia has been one of my absolute favorite techniques ever since I started knitting as a child. It was one of the first things that I learned how to do, and I'm confident in saying that I find myself to be somewhat of an expert in intarsia knitting. And it often bothered me with how people are sort of against it, and in a way intimidated by the technique. And believe me, it's a very, very simple thing to accomplish. It is a little bit fiddly, but when it comes to the very technique, it's a very simple thing. It's much more complex to do lace or cable patterns. intarsia is very simple. Well, it can be very difficult, but of course it depends on the pattern. My pattern is very geometrical, so it's much easier to manage. The thing is, with intarsia, it does get a bit fiddly, and it can get a little bit frustrating. So the point of the class is to show you how the technique is done and how you can do it in the easiest way possible, so that you are actually enjoying the process of working the intarsia knitting. And I really want to do that class. So I will also be posting all the notifications on when that's going to happen, and I'm going to post the application and everything. So if you'd like to join, keep an eye. And all of the 3 classes will be done via Zoom. So that's very exciting. And I hope that you come and join me. You might get to learn something new, but above all, we get to chat a little. And I get to see all of your lovely faces and get to know you better. So I'm very, very excited about doing those classes. It's going to be quite a busy month for me. I have quite a few things to do and to get done, since I've made some major plans for the future, which I shan't reveal yet. I will in due time, but for now I'll just keep it. So I have lots of things on my mind and lots of things to accomplish, and not to mention lots of projects to finish before the time comes. So I'm really looking forward to finishing some of my projects, including the jumper that I've started and made such little progress on that it's actually torturing me inside, because it just sits here in my basket and it looks at me every day. So it's the same like I showed you last time. I've done 2 rows on it, I think. Such a pity. And I think it's going to be very pretty in the end, and I really want to knit it. I just need to find the time. Yeah, but I hope upon finishing the lace, I'm going to get back to it and finish it. Hopefully. Let me show you. I want to show you the basket. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm quite a huge fan of baskets. And I love collecting them. I have some antique ones and I like making them. My grandmama taught me how to make them, since that's what they did back in those days. They made them, didn't buy them. So this is my standard knitting basket, and this is the current project basket. So that's, I just throw my yarn in there and keeps all of my knitting, and it's small so I can move it around and it stays there. So that's my project basket. So whenever you see me knitting in any of the films, you know that my knitting is in here. But do let me know down in the comments, where do you keep your yarn when you're working on a project? I know people use those yarn balls and project bags and stuff like that. I just prefer an old-fashioned basket. I don't have any others around me to show you. Yeah, I'll show you another time. I can do a video of all of my baskets. Right. So I would like to thank you for joining me in yet another quick episode 7 of the Knitting Diaries. I always find it such fun to chat with all of you. I feel like I'm looking each and every one of you in front of me, like we are just gathered here in this space, and we are sharing our experiences and our daily progress as fibre creators. Fibre artists. We do not create fibre, although that would be, I suppose, quite a convenient thing for one to do, be able to do. So if you do not mind, please do click the subscribe button, because it really helps me to keep me inspired and motivated to keep producing these films and sharing them with you. So like I mentioned previously, I'm doing a discount on the pattern, and I will be doing this type of thing for all of only for my YouTube viewers in the future. So by following me here on YouTube, by clicking the subscribe button, you can actually use the benefits, and you will be notified of all of the posts, the new episodes, and you can follow. Oh, and that sale, the 20%, is going to be valid until Sunday, next Sunday. So the time I'm posting this is Monday, so until Sunday. So the whole week you will be able to use the discount code. And also, if you do not want to buy the pattern, please go on Ravelry and click the add to favorites heart under this jumper. This way you can bring attention to my pattern, and other people might see it, and it will bring more traffic. So if you'd like to support me without spending your money, then you can subscribe and you can add to favorites this jumper. So that would be most appreciated. Right, so I hope you all have a wonderful week. And I hope that I shall see you soon, hopefully with some progress on my knitting. And thank you once again for joining me. So for now, I'm going to say ta-ta to you all, and happy knitting!